Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, whenever you're watching this presentation. My name is Mohammed Ihsan. I'm a QIU dental student. Today, I will be giving a presentation, an informative presentation about active recall, what is active recall, and how you can practice and use active recall on your daily studying routine. So, this is the table of content. We're going to go through what is active recall, brief definition of active recall, and we will be discussing also the science behind active recall, the physiology of the brain, and why active recall is very, very useful and effective, how active recall works. After explaining the physiology, how it works and how it helps us in our daily life as students, and we're going to go through also briefly the comparison between active recall and passive learning. Uh, After that, we're going to give some effective techniques that you can practice active recall with and apply on your daily studies. After that, we're going to be presenting tips for good results and for better outcome from this type of studying method. So let's start. First of all, what is active recall? Active recall is a technique. It's a proactive approach that engages your brain in deeper level of learning by actively retrieving information from memory. And many research and studies shows that active recall promotes long-term retention, um, understanding of complex concepts. So let's appreciate this type of studying to uh, be better with understanding, comprehending, and grasping the information that we need to apply on our daily life after we graduate. Best method, the best way for that outcome, for that result is definitely active learning. So, what is the science behind active learning? Well, it's very fascinating how behind active recall and its impact on our learning, the brain works. So basically, active recall involves actively retrieving information from our memory, strengthening neural connections through a process called synaptic plasticity. This creates a robust network in our brain, enhancing our ability to access and apply knowledge. Passive techniques such as rereading information and taking extensive notes and highlighting the slides or the pages lacks engagement needed for these type of connections between neurons, resulting in very low retention of the information studied. And by embracing active recall, we can say we can alter our brain physiology and how our brain works for better information retention and for better learning outcomes. Let's continue exploring about active recall and see how it works. So, transformative learning, it's a transformative learning technique. It improves memory retention by strengthening neural connection through synaptic plasticity, as we mentioned earlier. It prevents forgetting and creates networks of association between concepts. Uh, it also actively engage in retrieval, and by engaging in retrieval memory and by taking information out of your memories, we deepen understanding and enhance long-term retention even more. So it's very good. It's very effective in being applied in your studies, especially if you are medical or dental or pharmacy student. This type of fields require many information need to be memorized, and that's basically impossible to do all that just by memorizing them. You have to understand the concept, you have to comprehend the bigger picture, and after that, you will be able to not even memorize all of them, maybe 90, maybe 80, 70% of them. That would be good enough. And that's only possible by learning in active recall. So after that, we're gonna give a brief comparison between active recall and passive learning. So the differences between active recall and passive learning, and why active recall is much superior for maximizing our learning potential. Active recall involves deep engagement, genuine understanding, and making connections between concepts. We actively question ourselves, test our knowledge, and organize information. Practicing extra problems and understanding the purpose behind each step further enhances our comprehension and mastery. In contrast, uh, passive learning is marked by disengagement and focus on memorization without understanding. It relies on techniques such as mindless reading, rereading, excessive highlighting, and word for word note taking. Cramming and neglecting resources are common and very common in passive learners. Active recall promotes Active recall, on the other hand, promotes critical thinking, comprehensive understanding, and long-term retention, which is the most important one. It encourages deep engagement, making connections between concepts, and applying knowledge on certain situations or context. Passive learning, on the other hand, relies on superficial understanding, pure memorization, and just cramming before the exam. Now, let's explore the effective techniques that are good to be used in practicing and using active recall. So first of all, we have flashcards. Flashcards is very basic and very old yet very effective form of uh, practicing active recall. Uh, Flashcards engage retrieval practice, also reinforce knowledge. Second, we have retrieval practice itself through quizzes or summarizing, strengthen memories, and help for more long-term retention of the information. Concept mapping also aids in understanding complex concepts and their connections. Teaching others also is a type of active learning. It reinforces understanding and identifies gaps by using gaps by teaching others. You will know what the problem you have with the information themselves, with the concepts, and by that you will fill the gaps that you have according to what you need to learn more than what you already have learned. So by using these techniques, we enhance our learning outcomes and unlock our potential. Since we spoke about flashcards, I want to introduce I think it's my favorite and my most used app in the past few months. It's called Anki. Anki has changed my life, actually. It's very good, it's very effective. Anki is basically a digital tool that enhances learning and memory retention. It utilizes spaced repetition, adapting flashcards, review frequency based on performance of these cards that you are studying. Anki breaks down complex subjects and supports visual aids for effective learning. Its adaptive approach strengthens understanding and long-term retention. Basic active recall. Anki is valuable companion for exam preparation, language learning, and any subject requiring memorization and deep understanding for long-term memory. So it's basically you make flashcards. You like, for example, I made a flashcard. This flashcard has 3 blanks, let's say, or 3 definitions of 3 different things. I try to answer the question, answer the flashcard, and based on my performance, the system and the algorithms in the program itself will use spaced repetition to repeat that information on me based on my performance and based how good I understood and how good I answered these questions or these flashcards. Basically, let's say out of those 3 definitions, I answered 2. Okay, the 2 questions that I answered, it will repeat them for me in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But for the question, that 1 question out of 3 that I missed, it will probably repeat it in 2 days. And after 2 days, if I didn't do well, it will repeat it after 1 day. And it will keep repeating information for you until you completely understand everything. It's very good, it's very effective, and it changed my life. So To maximize effectiveness of active recall, we need to follow these tips. I use them actually in my daily studying routine, and they're very effective and very useful. And they've gotten me a very good results and outcomes in my university grades. So first of all, we have clear objectives. Setting clear objectives to focus on your active recall sessions and specific information on concepts. After that, we have space out your study. Space out your study basically means spaced repetition, which Anki provides by itself, by the algorithms. You don't have to do anything. Just gotta answer, and Anki will give you a specific time and a specific form of questions or frequency of questions to enhance your memory and your understanding. Third of all, we have mixing up the topics or concepts you engage with during active recall helps you to strengthen the connections and the understanding. Test yourself by incorporating self-quizzes, practice tests to actively retrieve information and stimulate exam conditions. Basically, you're training yourself and you're training your brain for exams, which is very, 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 very effective. Fifth, we have prioritizing active retrieval over passive rereading to challenge your memory and promote long-term retention. Basically, I have a lecture. This lecture has 30 slides. Instead of rereading those 30 slides for, let's say, 3 times and taking notes and highlighting them, I read it 1 time, I make flashcards out of it, and I keep studying those flashcards, whether just today, whether the day after, whether a week after, or even a month. It will all be used and applied in a good frequency by Anki itself. Second, we have mnemonics, mnemonic devices like acronyms, visual imagery, or rhymes to create association and aid in recall. Well, it's not a very scientific way of long-term retention, but it is very good in memorizing certain things that you don't understand very well, yet your brain will make those connections, will connect the dots, and you will answer. For example, if you have some type of question in the exam, you already made mnemonics for it, such as rhythms, you will instantly remember the answer and you will answer it very effectively. By implementing these tips, you can optimize your active recall practice and achieve exponential results in your studies. So I've been talking about active recall for the past, I don't know how many minutes. I want to share a story. I actually didn't know active recall. I spent 12 years of my life studying by passive learning. I just read the information. I take notes, maybe highlight them, and cram it for the exam, probably 1 or 2 days before the exam, and that's it. I found out about active recall when my friend was talking about it. I heard the word active recall and how it's very effective, and it's the most evidence-based learning technique. So I went to YouTube and I searched for active recall. After I learned what active recall is, I searched for tools. I searched for ways to practice active recall and use active recall and apply it. I found out about Anki. I started using Anki in my first semester. Didn't use it that much. Like out of maybe 100 something lectures, I made like 31 or 32 flashcards for those lectures, and that's it. But in the second semester, I started using it more. I used it extensively for oral science. We had a final exam at the end of the first year in oral science. I got, just by using active recall and Anki flashcards, I got 260 out of 260, which was the highest. Actually, it was like the highest mark, and I was the only one in my batch to get this mark. Started using it even more. I've been using it even more extensively this semester. I'm preparing for exam with it. I used it for the central nervous system progress test in medical science. We had 42 lectures. I made 42 pages of flashcards. I studied them for the exam. I prepared for the exam through Anki, and I got 96.7 out of 100, which was the highest batch, which was the highest result in my batch too. So I provided here some links for articles and for YouTube videos that helped me to be better at active recall and be better at making more effective and more useful flashcards. I put them here, you can check them out. I also use them as references and as resources for collecting information for this presentation. And that was my part. I hope you understood, and I hope it was a fruitful, informative presentation. That's it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.